Hello there, this is the Old Gaming Geezer. Welcome along to episode 26 of the Indeterminate stuff. And what you see here is our refueling ship, our rescue ship, on our way out to meet up with the Setanta, which is stuck in orbit around Tylo with no fuel. Now, this ship was originally designed and launched to rescue our crash victims on the surface of Lathe, which we're just going to aero capture around now. But we managed to rescue those. But this ship was on the way, so it's full of fuel, so we're doing it. We are doing an aero capture directly around Lathe, which is going to put us in a much better position in the orbiter in the Julian system to get to Tylo. We're just going to slow down and get a nice little orbit around Lathe. You're all familiar with the scene from 2010, The Odyssey 2, where the cosmonaut Alexei Leonov's spaceship did an aero capture around Jupiter, which was pretty awesome. And it's only ever been done a couple of times in reality, as far as I'm aware. There was a Russian lunar probe in the 60s called Zon 7, maybe? I'm not really sure. That did an aero capture when it came back from the moon. It did an aero capture to slow down its orbit. It was in a hyperbolic orbit, but it used the atmosphere to slow it down, to put it into an elliptical orbit, and then it came around again and went back into the atmosphere. I don't remember if it landed safely or if it burned up, or whether it was supposed to land safely or supposed to burn up. I don't recall. I read about it years ago, but I don't really remember. So we have now successfully managed to do our aero capture. We got a nice tight orbit around Lathe, and we're ready to go to Tylo. And so we set up ourselves a maneuver node to get out to Tylo. It's very similar to a planetary maneuver, because, well, we're in a small solar system, so we've got to move around from planet to planet. And so we burn most of the fuel. We still have this this large engine from our second stage that we used to launch from Kerbal. One of the large NASA engines. I can't remember which one it's called, but they are amazing. And we're almost out of fuel, so I'm going to pump as much fuel forward as I can, because I actually pulled some fuel out of that middle stage because I want to continue using that big engine. And I'm just checking around now here just to make sure that I haven't accidentally taken fuel out of any of the other places that I may need fuel in later. Now, here the large engine, of course, is not really able to fine-tune, as you saw there, my orbit well enough to get to Tylo, so I'm activating my nuclear engines, and I'm going to do the final part of the burn with that. Actually, no, I've got to turn around and slow down a bit, because I actually didn't stop in time with the huge engine, but, you know, you get the fast burns, but not exactly, you don't get the accuracy that you need, that the nuclear engines give you, you know. So here's me just quickly fine-tuning my orbit to get to Tylo. And there we go, we have a Tylo encounter, and we're going to be hitting there real soon. And here we are, leaving Lathe for the last time in this mission. Goodbye, Lathe, as the beautiful Jool appears over the horizon. We get a final Jool rise as we say goodnight to beautiful Lathe. We go out to the rocky environs of Tylo. And of course, our orbit wasn't exactly ideal, so we came in pretty high over Tylo, but we managed to burn enough fuel to get us down into orbit, and we are setting ourselves up with a maneuver, actually quite a pretty good maneuver, to get us onto a very similar orbit to the Setanta, which is in an inclined orbit around Tylo. As you can see, I am fine-tuning my orbit there to get us close in. And there, I think, yeah, just fine-tuning, And my fine-tuning gets me into a close approach to the Setanta. We're going to come in and do what I plan is a standard dock once we do our rendezvous. And here I am zeroing out my relative velocity, and now I'm going to show the approach at 800 times time acceleration, because, you know, it's the wonders of video editing, so we can just see ourselves get close. Now, just coming up here, you're going to see me make the first of several mistakes that I make in this game. I have detached my transfer stage from the lander, And now I'm going to bring it in and dock it with the Setanta. The only problem is that transfer stage has no RCS. So I'm actually going to have to do the docking with the Setanta, which is enormous. Now, I haven't realized that at this point. I really should have kept the lander attached to it. And that's the second part of my mistake. So I suppose it's a two-part mistake. So I get this in close and I line it up as best that I can. And then I switch to the Setanta. And using the Setanta's RCS system, I'm going to attempt to dock with the small transfer stage. This took a long time because the Setanta is really slow. And because of where the docking ports are, I couldn't really see what I was doing, as you can see, and I had to basically guess the whole time. And my maneuver nodes for my docking node indicator on my nav ball wasn't showing up right, and everything was going wrong. Absolutely everything. But finally, after about maybe half an hour, 45 minutes of wrestling with this, I finally managed to get them docked, and I was so happy. And I remember sitting there going, oh my god, I'm never doing this again. So transfer all of the fuel out of this transfer stage, because we're never going to use it again, we're never going to need it again, into the Setanta, so that the Setanta has enough fuel to finish its mission, and then we're going to dump the transfer stage. And so, mission accomplished. And now we switch back to the lander, and I'm going to dock the lander to the Setanta. However, the lander has no way to dock to the Setanta. Oh, God. So we have to go through this whole process all over again, and I'm playing it back at very high speed here, 800 times time acceleration again, but I had to go through the whole process of lining up again and redocking the transfer stage with the Setanta. And oh my god, this took ages again. It didn't take quite as long the second time, but it took a hell of a long time. But finally, we got it into dock. Almost. Here we go. We're coming into dock. We're in. We're docked. Excellent. So back to Bill and Jeb on the lander. They need to come back in and dock with the transfer stage because it's the only thing that has a large docking port on it. Yeah, I didn't really plan this out well. I'm sure you can tell. Not a lot of thought went into this rescue mission. It was done very quickly. But anyway, we get the lander in with a minimum of fuss, and we line it up with the transfer stage docked to the side of the Setanta, and we bring it in for a nice, smooth, like a ballet-like dock. Isn't that beautiful? Just beautiful, straight in there. Love it. And then we got to transfer the fuel from the lander to the Setanta. That is our next thing. So there we go, we docked, we're happy, we're good. So next, transferring fuel, more fuel transfer. Get everything into the Setanta so it's as fueled up as it's going to be. It's not going to be fully fueled up because, well, we just didn't bring out quite enough fuel for that. But we brought it out, and there we go, it's just doing the last of fuel, checking every single engine. And there we go. So the Setanta is just a little under half full, which is great, which is fantastic. And so, of course, now we got to transfer the boys over. Bill and Jeb weren't actually supposed to be on this mission, but they snuck into the pod, the capsule, when I was doing a launch. So they ended up on the mission. Damn those bastards. But they're here, and luckily there's plenty of room on the Setanta for extra unplanned for passengers. Hopefully there's enough snacks to bring them home. And so, now finally we dump the rescue ship. It has done its job. It has brought out fuel to the Setanta, and goodbye, thank you very much. We turned out we didn't need the lander, but that's okay. So now it's time for the next part of our mission, to attempt a landing on Tylo, the cruel bitch herself, Tylo. And so here we have the Tylo lander. I'm bringing it around to a place where I can burn to get the maximum amount of time burning with these nuclear engines, which are the first part of our process, of course, I have to turn on the nuclear engines to do this. And we only turned on one of them because something's wrong. Something's wrong. Oh, we had a fuel line turned off. But anyway, we start burning. And we are going to lower our orbit very slowly to try and get us down into a... And there we've now come out of orbit. We're now on a ballistic orbit coming down. Is that right? Ballistic? I'm not sure. But we're now committed. We are going down to the surface of Tylo one way or another. Now, at this point, John R. Kerman is beginning to suspect that maybe this design was not the most, the best design for this particular mission. It probably needed something with more power than the nuclear engines, but, well, you know, as I said, we're committed. But we run out of fuel for the nuclear engines, so we dump them and move on to our next piece of the puzzle. So now, at this point, I'm going to try something a little bit crazy. I'm going to try to do a suicide burn, set up a maneuver node with a suicide burn. So that'll give me the amount of time it's going to take me to slow down to 0 speed. So I know that I've got to start burning at a particular point. Now I'm just double checking my fuel and burning. I need to keep the fuel gauge up on the next one of those fuel tanks, because that will tell me when to drop it, which will obviously increase the amount of delta V I've got when I'm not carrying the dead weight of those empty tanks. And so I'm closely watching the fuel. Now, I'm worried about the clipping on this ship, because little bits have clipped in against each other. So when I run out of fuel, I'm actually going to shut down the engine and dump them and then continue on again. So I'm slowing down and trying to get myself into... I gotta slow down a hell of a lot to get down to Tylo. So at this point, I am looking at my surface velocity, using the Kerbal engineer and my actual radar altitude as we rapidly approach. So at this point, it's time to start slowing down a little bit more. Probably not being the most efficient here, but I'm trying to be as careful as I can. John R. Kerman is looking a bit scared down there in the corner. It's because he knows that Tylo's a tough one. I've never successfully landed. No Kerbal has ever successfully landed on the surface of Tylo. This is, in fact, our first attempt. And we're just checking our orbit there. Going to get rid of that maneuver node, set up a new one, because I've slowed down significantly still then. Oh, I went the wrong way. So, now, it's time to start slowing down a little bit more as we get closer. Time to burn. This is our suicide burn now. We're a little bit before time, but that's okay, because I wanted to give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room. And there we go. Oh, no! Oh, no! There's a clipping issue that I was talking about. Our ship has exploded. John R. Kerman has survived the explosion in his little pod. And that is the end of our Tylo mission. Oh no, there is absolutely nothing that I can do to save him. And he's approaching the surface at, what, about 1500 meters per second, and there he goes. John R. Kerman made the ultimate sacrifice in the name of Kerbal science. Oh, John R., we came all the way out here only for it to end for you in disaster. Oh, John R. Oh, a hero. He will always be remembered as the hero of Tylo. And so, with a heavy heart, the crew of the Setanta must return home now. They must leave John R. Kerman behind, forever a reminder of the sacrifices that must be made in the interests of extending the knowledge and science. And so, all of our ships now in the Julian system have completed their missions, and it's time for us to go home to to Kerbal. They've been away a long time. We set up our maneuver nodes, and also Expressway to Heck slowly wobbles its way around to its maneuver node. The boys on this ship are feeling the pain of their comrades on the Setanta, because, you know, all these Kerbals, they trained together. They trained for this mission together, and they're, you know, Johnner was a friend, and he's gone. He won't be coming home. And so our ships are moving home. Even our far gone and out ship that was in orbit around Elu, she's also on her way home too. Their mission was a complete success, no tragedy. There she is, far gone and out, to a mid-course maneuver to bring it back to Kerbal, to a level where we can aerobrake, slow ourselves down. And so the first ship to make it home is the Expressway to Heck, as she warps in, as we time warp in close to Kerbal, and we are going to aerobrake, aero capture. We'll do another aero capture around Kerbal to bring these guys home, as we see our first sunset over Kerbal for many, many a long year. These guys have been away a long time. And, well, they can't actually see the sunrise at this moment because the ship is going backwards, because the back is too heavy. So if I went in front ways, the ship would start spinning like crazy. But we get into a fairly eccentric orbit, but that's fine. We've been captured. We've been captured by Kerbal's gravity, so we're very pleased about that. We're going to go around now and burn at our highest point to slow us down. It's our first view of Kerbal for a long time. These guys must be very happy to be home. And so here we are. We're going to burn at our highest point in our orbit to raise our lowest point in our orbit up above the atmosphere, so we don't go back in. And then back down at the lowest point, we now circularize our orbit, preparing to land. But of course, this ship can't land, so we have to send something up to bring them home. So we'll be sending up a floppy goose shuttle, which we've seen before. This is an old shuttle from several episodes ago. I think we used this shuttle to crew up I believe we used this shuttle to crew up the Expressway to Heck, and probably the Setanta too. And so this is a standard launch with our Rapier engines, and we get up to high speed, high altitude, and try and air hog as much as we can until it's time to switch over to rocket mode and get ourselves up into orbit. So flying this shuttle, the Floppy Goose, is Bob Kerman. He's an old hand at this sort of thing, and we get ourselves up into orbit, no problems whatsoever. There we go, the orbit camera just flipped, we're in orbit. So next we've got to rendezvous with the Expressway to Heck, which we do with the minimum of fuss, although we do run out of fuel. However, that was planned. This shuttle, the Floppy Goose, has got plenty of RCS for orbital maneuvers. I actually had more fuel than that. The fuel lasted longer than I was expecting. So anyway, we get close to the Expressway to Heck, and let's get a look at it. Let's have Bob get a look at the Expressway to Heck from inside the Floppy Goose. There it is, a beautiful looking ship, nightmare to fly. The wobble-tastic ship it is. So, Bob gets in close and slows down. Everything is looking real sweet at this point. She's maneuvering in close. Gets in close enough now. Now the Floppy Goose is not going to dock. It's just going to get close enough, and the boys are going to get out. Now, on this ship, we have Dundert Kerman, Jan Kerman, Kenbury Kerman, and Dilbury Kerman. Now I've speeded up us getting them all out, and we don't even need to see us transfer them all over. So the last person to get out, of course, is Dilbury Kerman, and he switches off the lights on the Expressway to Heck and heads over to the Floppy Goose because he wants to go home. We take a final look as he exits, floats across the depths of space to the Floppy Goose, and he's gonna get inside. There he goes, coming down to the hatch. And he's in. Excellent. So he's in. So it's time to bring these heroes home. But let's take a quick look at the ship from inside. Goodbye, Expressway to Heck. You've served us very well. Hey, how you doing? Okay, so the Floppy Goose does a standard deorbit burn and gets down. As you can see, we're coming up close to the KSC. Those are the mountains on the horizon that are just west of the KSC. So I was very pleased with this deorbit of the space shuttle. You've seen before that I've taken space planes down in totally the wrong position. And I'm a little bit worried that I'm going a little bit fast, but I figure, you know, I've got a little bit of jet fuel left, some liquid fuel left, so I can actually turn on my jet engines and do a little bit of more maneuvering. And we get our re-entry effects as the spaceplane cuts through the thick atmosphere of Kerbal. Yeah, we're just coming over the mountains now. At this point, I am going to start. I'm getting worried about the speed. Getting worried about I'm going too fast. And I get a little bit impatient. And so I decide to do a little bit of maneuvering around. Trying to get myself more online with the runway. But, you know, it looks like now I'm going to overshoot. And I don't really want to overshoot because I'm kind of lazy and I'm impatient. What's happening is I'm impatient and I don't really want to overshoot. So I figure I'm going to try and do maneuver, but I'm going way too fast for that. And there we have it. We have lost a wing. We are in serious trouble now. And the other wing just pops off. And oh my god, we're in serious trouble. We've lost most of our surfaces, but we still got fuel. So I fire the engines and I try to turn the ship around. We've got a little bit of wing left. We've got a little bit of lift. I think I can land this. I really do. So I'm trying to angle it around. The only control surfaces we've got are the Cunards on the front and the rudders on the back, the Jool rudders on the back. So I figure I'm going to be able to turn this around and get it to land on that piece of land over there, you know, just west of that bay. And this, you know, we're falling pretty fast, but we have control. And that's important. We have control. So I've extended my landing gear now, and we're going to try and save these guys. These are Kerbal heroes. I cannot let anything happen to them. I need to get these boys home safely and landed. So we're coming in now over the land. Slowing down very slowly slowing down. Decelerating at a moderate pace. So fire up the engines a little bit just to give myself a little bit more control. And if my angle of attack is too far off, was too high, then this thing is going to flip out. I can just feel it just by the way it's really kind of squirrely. So now, still dropping, but I've raised my nose up, so I'm dropping a little bit slower, trying to lower my rate of descent. As I'm dropping, I think it's about 10 meters per second at this point. And I am very, very scared. And you can see the light of my landing lights on the ground. I actually turned those off because it was distracting me. And so now, we're slowed down quite a bit. We're about, what, 75 meters per second? We're just above the surface. I know our altimeter says, oh, we're 35 meters, okay. And here we are, we're coming down, flaring now, and the plane flips out. I try to flare a little bit, the whole thing flips out, and we crash. And the back of the plane, the crew, the passenger module has fallen off. And I'm looking around trying to get to the passenger module. The two crew members in the forward module are still alive, but in the passenger module are the only ones. The passenger module is gone. I've lost my crew. Arid Kerman is the only one to have survived. Dunder, Jan, Kenbury, and Dilbury join John Kerman on the list of heroes who will never come home. This is the old gaming geezer. Good night, my sweet princes. May hosts of angels guide you to your rest.